A pleasant day, team and viewers. Today we'll discuss our team's formative assessment 2 entitled How Socially Aware Are You? In this meeting, Team C will showcase our collaborated ideas about our identified major problem, and the objectives of this discussion are to share the problem's definition, details, causes, effects, and at the same time, we'll share our problem mitigation tips to prevent this major problem and be vocal to our group contribute solution. So one of my member will be discussing the identified major problem and start the discussion.
Thank you. So, cybercrime and cybersecurity, scams and identity theft, and etc. With the increasing rate of the accessibility in the internet and in technology in general, we are only to expect the inevitable exploitation of its system. And as such, the event named cybercrime are instances of scamming, identity theft, and or essentially immoral actions done through the medium of the internet. This problem has been present for a considerable amount of time. However, its frequency has seemingly increased in the past few years. And so the concern of cybercrime is an ever contemporary issue and should be acted upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. In this part, we will be discussing the common causes of cybercrimes that make cybercriminals target users easily. One of the common causes of it is assessing risk. Users who uses digital technology tends to underestimate the capabilities of cybercriminals and the risk of their cyber attacks, therefore making them an easy target to the cybercriminals' radars and observation. The more an individual underestimates simple risk of cyber attacks, the easier for cybercriminals to take severe action. To elucidate further, there have been common occurrences where one simple cyber attack can look as a simple problem that can easily be solved, thus ignoring and neglecting the cyber attack. However, the risk of doing so is very real and significant as it can lead to a factor to develop into something much more dangerous and severe into your data and possessions online. To prevent it, we must develop a habit to protect ourselves online and be aware and knowledgeable on the risk of cyber attacks, as well as take basic preventive measures to keep us safe from cyber crimes. Let me call on Mr. Rabbit to discuss the next cause of cyber crimes.
Thank you for the introduction. Now, moving on to another cause of cybercrime in the Philippines. It usually happens when a group or a collective of netizens come together to oppose a statement or a movement either given by a large company or a government. Now, an example of this is a group of netizens going by the name of CyberPH for human rights. Now, these group of people took the initiative to hack the official government PH site, and after nine activists died on a few days prior. Now, this is a prime example of an organized attack towards a higher power, which in this case is the Philippine government.
Now, the third cause of the cybercrime is unmoderated networks. Unmoderated networks are one of the reasons why people become victims of cybercrime because they lack the knowledge to differentiate between a trusted and untrusted site. Moreover, clicking on these unmoderated networks can produce a wide range of effects, which will be discussed later on. Next, let me call on Ramiel for the next cause.
Cybercrime is one of many things where proper netiquette must be observed. If we will look at the code of conduct, we can see a few rules that can help us keep safe from cybercrimes.
Next up is the lack of awareness of cyber threats. Adding to the cause is the lack of awareness on cyber threats and how one exactly falls victim to it. We need to be educated and aware on what cyber threats we could be exposed to, such as malware, phishing sites, password attacks, and many more. One may not have the resources or ability to counterhack or identify the doers of cyber threats, so the least we could do is avoid being a victim. Do not fall for the promise of a fast job opportunity or a large sum of money. Once we can identify these cyber threats, we could easily avoid them or report it to respective authorities. Next, the next cause will be discussed by Mr. Yang.
And finally, we have the desire of making quick money. To reiterate, the accessibility and the anonymity of the internet makes it very easy for a malicious user to target a wide audience in order to exploit such money. We have experienced and examples of this by the tech scams that we all these are usually done by bots, by servers and such. They can target specific audiences by their database. Hence, it's very easy to create quick money. And that concludes for the causes of our tree. Next, we would have the effects.
Now, moving onwards to the effects of cybercrime. Now, let us start with more prevalent cases that have occurred recently in the Philippines, which are the following that I'm going to state. Now, firstly, identity theft. Secondly, data breaches, and lastly, loss of account. Now, a recent article from the Gulf News has stated that five individuals used a page capable of stealing and abusing unknowing netizens to launder money using GCash as their main form of transaction. Now, their plan of action was to obtain GCash accounts details from the fake page, which is then used in the real GCash software to proceed with the illegal money transfers, which is them stealing the money from the accounts of these unsuspecting buyers. Now, another form of cybercrime is identity theft. Now, I just stated identity theft is can be done in many ways. Now, an article published by the Philippine National Police. In this situation, a seller attracts a potential buyer in the FB page of the marketplace, and once the deal is closed by the buyer between the buyer and the seller, he is then asking for the valid IDs and personal information of this buyer. Now, once the seller has obtained these information, he will then block and render the transaction void and then proceed to do so for another several transactions. Now, this is a very prime example of identity theft, which can then be used to fraud fraud and other cases of money stealing.
The next effect is unnecessary panic, leaking of private information. In the case of cybercrime, it appears to violate a person's privacy and the security of their information, which can cause an unnecessary reaction, which is panic. Lastly, it includes crimes against people which incorporate the showing of various categories of personal information about that specific person without their permission. Next, let me call on Julie for the next effect.
Thank you, Ms. Roman. An effect of cybercrime is the user's profile being hacked, therefore can lead to a reputation loss. As the cybercriminal gain access to the user's profile in all of its accounts, it has now full authority and control to the user's profile and therefore can manage its posts, news feeds, page, messages, contacts, and many more. It is inevitable and expected that the cyber criminal may contact the people in your account, page, and profile, negative and inappropriate captions, posts, and messages that may disturb or trouble the receiver using your own name and identity. Resulting to this form of hacking, the user's reputation may come to an end or be negatively different to other people. Next effect will be discussed by Ms. Kison.
Next effect is doxing and the preventing of the original owner from accessing their data. Doxing comes from the root word docs, which is a slang for documents, particularly containing sensitive information. According to Kaspersky.com, doxing is the act of revealing identifying information about someone online, such as their real name, home address, workplace, phone, financial, and other personal information. This is often posted on public sites without the victim's consent. This is a tool often used in culture wars on the internet, often leading to cyberbullying and harassment. In cases such as phishing and password attacks, where cybercriminals could access an account, most oftentimes the original user will lose access to his or her account. This could be the gateway for identity theft, harassment, or the account will be held on ransom for a certain amount of money. Last effect will be discussed by Mr. Ignacio.
And for the final effect, where a victim falls for internet scams and will experience a psychological abuse. Although this is similar to another effect, it only becomes worse after a person realizes that they have been scammed. Since we may never know when we will encounter this situation, victims will only feel hopeless and helpless. And that is all for the effects of cybercrimes.
So, after discussing the causes and effects of our major problem, I'll be discussing the summary. Cybercrime is so sophisticated these days and that it's almost impossible to prevent. While prevention should still be the main goal, you should also be prepared for what happens once an incident has occurred. This may help reduce the amount of damage that cybercriminals can do. To sum up, the things that must be done to combat or prevent cybercrime or cybersecurity threats are the following. Number one is establish a strong and unique password to any of your account. As we all know that this generation, online platforms, applications, and transactions requires accounts, and by creating a strong password, it helps to secure our accounts from trespasser. Number two, keep things to yourself. You might be tempted to allow close friends or family to access your password to protect sites without you. This is just a little foolish. Even the most trustworthy and well meaning person can accidentally open you up to cybercrime if their computer is infected. So be vigilant and change your passwords frequently. Number three, make sure of two step verification. Many online platforms and e commerce sites offer two factor verification for your accounts. This offers an extra layer of security that requires not only a username and password, but also something that only the rightful owner holds an access to. Banks do this very well. Think of the last time you made a bank transaction online, you would have an access to your account with a username and password and probably a one-time PIN or OTP. This OTP was generated specifically for use at time of your logging in and would expire within an hour of generation. This is an example of two-step verification, and it means that if someone did have your username or password, they'd also have needed to access your mobile phone in order to see that OTP was. This make it far difficult for cybercriminals to access your data. Lastly is that make use of antivirus software. Antivirus and anti-malware software has become security non-negotiable. A recent survey reviewed some of the top security apps for Android phones and antivirus software for PCs. Basically, our group can contribute a small continuous steps having a huge impact solution. Given its prevalence, you may be wondering how to stop cybercrime. Here are some tips, sensible tips from our team to protect your computer and your personal data from cybercriminals. We highly believe that awareness protects us from possible danger. Therefore, our team can initiate movement that promotes safe usage in the cyber world by sharing of infographics or to our social medias, publishing of creative outputs to grab viewers' attention to our content, engaging with reliable sources, sharing of factual information, and active participation with different official departments that aims to protect netizens. This problem will only get harder to address until we educate ourselves on good etiquette and awareness about cyber threats. Therefore, Team C could encourage our relatives, friends, workmates, and be limitless upon raising adequate knowledge about strengthening our cybersecurity. Moreover, in this age of information, we can help mitigate this issue by starting to protect ourselves online. This includes choosing which information we present to the public, regularly changing passwords, and being aware of networks we connect to. And that way, we have the wall that protects us at the end. At the same time, we are free from malware, viruses that may infect our peers as well. That's all. Thank you.